able to play. So if it's only a 2-week deal, they may not sign somebody to come in here because they can simply maintain what they did last week, have John Greco snap for another week, and then they can decide whether they want to use somebody off the practice squad to come and be a swing guard, whether they want to put McQuiston in there. They've got a couple of options, but it's still open. No guarantee that they bring anybody in. And according to Coach Pettin, it's more likely if they do bring somebody in that they'll promote from the practice squad and then bring somebody in to replace them on the practice squad rather than bringing in a starting type center to come in and plug them in the middle of this line, because you really got such good chemistry and vibe with these guys, and they're working as a unit that I don't know that it wouldn't be a step back to bring in somebody from the outside anyway.
Right. And, the only bad thing about this now is, whether or not he's going to be able to be on the sidelines and continue to be a cheerleader, a captain for the team. Usually the first week after an injury, they want you off your leg. So they may have to push him around in a wheelchair for a few days. But, I think it's very important that he stays visible and that he stays vocal and that he continues to lead on the team. I have no doubt in my mind that, in 2 weeks, Victor Cruz will be back on that sideline for the Giants. Even on crutches, he'll be a strong cheerleader for that team. And you have to kind of expect the same thing out of Alex Mack or any veteran who is as respected as he is that gets hurt, during the middle part of the season. You want that guy on the sideline for the rest of the season, no matter what.
And I'll tell you what, I told somebody off the air, and I'm going to say this on the air for the first time here. There's still, and we're talking about the guy. We brought him up. We're talking about the guy who has dug through some heavy-duty stuff in his career as far as pain tolerance. I'm gonna go on a limb here. Alex Mack is not done for the season. I think he's done for the regular season, but I believe that if the Browns are able to get into the postseason, I think Alex Mack will be back for it. And all I'm going to say is if that works out that way, that is the kind of thing this team, the way they feel about him, they could ride that thing. There's no limit to how far that story could ride itself. You think Brian Hoyer's a good story now? Let the Browns come down to the end of the season and find a way to win the division or make the playoffs, and then Alex Mack comes back from an injury that most people would have been out for the season, and he comes back in 10, 12 weeks, because I believe that he can be back in 10 weeks no matter what. I think that he can be back on the field in 10 weeks with the way he rehabs and attacks his ability. So think about it. 10 weeks would put you back for the wild card round of the playoffs. And I'm just saying that's one of those things that happens and it's just meant to happen. And you never know what could happen. So I don't think Alex Mack has played his final snap of the season. I'm just going to go on record as predicting that now when everybody says the season's over. I think he's going to be back, assuming maybe that the Browns, and maybe that gives the Browns, think about that. If in a couple of weeks, Alex Mack tells the team, hey, I can be back by the first round of the playoffs, there's another reason to fight that little bit harder to try to make the playoffs so that you could get Alex Mack back on the field and not have to wait until next year. I'm just saying maybe there's a silver lining to that dark cloud.
It's very possible because you've got all the makings of a winning team here. You've got a good starting quarterback. You've got the backup quarterback. Even though you've had adversity with your receiving core, you still have some good wide receivers, which every team needs running backs to help chew up the clock, and the Browns have them. And you have a defense that, while it still has issues, is starting to come into its own. Steelers, even though the Steelers, as I said, are not the same team that they were in years past, they're still the Pittsburgh Steelers. And obviously, Pettin figured out what the answer is to the Ben Roethlisberger problem.
Yeah, and I'm telling you, he talked more about it yesterday, what we simplified the defense and made it much less responsibility on the guys, and that they seem to respond to that. And it worked. You didn't have a lot of those cutback runs and those big, like Mike Pettin says, those chunk plays. You didn't have a bunch of those against the team. Really, one route there later in the game for about 20, 25 yards. So it is what it is. Let's see what the Browns can do now. It's fun to watch these. Can you make it 3 in a row? Can you make it back-to-back on the road? Can you? Those are the things that I like to see. Let's watch what the Browns can do. Of course, we here on the show will preview that more as we get down towards the end of the week. But we talk about Dallas going to Seattle and doing what they did. We're seeing some shifting here around the league, which is exactly the way the NFL is built. Joking with my son last night, we're watching the Monday Night Football, and it looked like one of those old school when I was growing up Niners, because the 49ers uniforms are still pretty close to what they were before, and those old LA Rams uniforms, and I was watching that, but watching those teams, but they just looked at me and said, "Dad, I know what you're thinking." I said, I'm thinking it. When they brought up the 9, the Rams, the Super Bowl, Kurt Warner, all of that, 4-12, and then here comes the quarterback nobody ever heard of that wasn't even in the league the year before, and here comes this running attack nobody saw coming. Here comes these receivers nobody ever heard of that were catching everything all over the place, a defense that couldn't get no respect, and they marched this thing all the way to the Super Bowl, like I said, with the quarterback who was bagging literally 12 months before, and now he's playing in the Super Bowl. And as that's on the screen, Jerry's just looking at me going, "I know what you're thinking." I'm like, I know. People are going to tell me I'm just being a crazy homer, but if the Rams could do it, won't know how good this team can be yet, but it clearly can be done. Maybe Brian Hoyer becomes Kurt Warner. I mean, think about it. Guy goes from the grocery store to 3 MVP.
Yeah, and that's a really good point, because a lot of people overlook what the positives that a veteran quarterback Hoyer brings to the offense on a play-by-play, drive-by-drive basis. Here's a guy that understands how to get everybody calmed down when something bad happens, and say, "Look, guys, it's just one little bump in the road, and let's drive around the pothole. Let's drive around the IED blast and keep going."
And it's funny because, and I've heard stories over the years. I've listened to interviews of Kurt Warner, and it's funny because I could literally imagine a guy like Brian Hoyer using similar psychology when you're in the huddle in these big games late and you're having this magical season. You look at guys and go, "Hey, what were you doing last year?" "I was in the grocery store." "I don't know. What were you doing at this time last year?"
That's right.
And guys realize, man, we're doing something special, and it starts to become contagious. But my point on the other side is for the people listening. It's fun. It's fun to watch. Enjoy it, because as you know, it can very quickly get ugly really fast.
That's right.
And enjoy
That's
it,
right.
man. Even Peter King, if you need, some people need proof. Some people are like, "Hey, man, I'm not believing it until so-and-so believes it." Well, even Peter King said, "Cleveland, it's okay to believe it's real." He headlined his Monday morning quarterback this week with the Browns, and there's a reason for that. These guys they're not homers. They're not just looking at Cleveland and going, "Hey, man, we love the Browns." No, they would prefer the Browns be miserable because it's a better story, but now there's a better story in Cleveland, which is the Browns being good. So, you have permission from Peter King to believe it's real. Hey, I wanted to segue off the Browns a little bit here before I let you go. Looking in the division, I don't know if you've got an opinion or not. A lot of people chiming in on both sides. Vontae's perfect from the Bengals going out there. Is he intentionally trying to hurt people? He's been fined before for dirty plays. The video, to me, it looks pretty clear that he's definitely trying to wrench the ankle at the end of the play there. And, from one side, I get it. When a guy is known to have a shoulder injury, the coaches on the defense teach you to hit him in that sore shoulder on every play and try to re-injure him, not because you want him hurt, but because you want him to be thinking about the injury. So I get that aspect of it, but going after people's legs is such a dirty thing. And I really, it's such a sensitive thing. I mean, we've seen it, I remember last year watching Ward take out Gronk and just end his season on one hit. You know how easily the legs can be done in. But I mean, even Cincinnati fans that I've talked to today have told me stuff like, I'm a Bengals fan, and he's a dirty player, and I wouldn't be mad if he got suspended. So clearly there's a lot of people that feel that he is not accidentally doing these things. He's out here intentionally trying to hurt cats.
Yeah, that's true. And
what do you think?
I'm not sure.
Did you see the video?
Some guys, I saw the video. There are some guys that obviously look like they're doing it on purpose, and there are some guys that are like, who, what, me? I'm just doing my job. I'm not trying to take the guy's legs out. So, it's 6 of one and a half dozen of the other with the scale. To me, on the video, it looked pretty intentional. It looked like he had a 2 or 3 step lead to that hit.
Right. Well, that's what I'm saying. And so, and then even if you were willing to give the guy the benefit that, okay, videotape can lie sometimes, especially when you slow things down or whatever. But no, you also have you've already shown yourself to be a guy that's not afraid to take the dirty shot, that's not afraid to try to hurt somebody outside of just accidents happen in the game of football. And I think you lose the benefit of the doubt there. And I would hope that if the NFL watches this and they come to the conclusion that he's out here doing this on purpose, that they would make an example out of this guy. I say suspend him. Spend him 2, 3, 4 games. I don't know, whatever. I don't know what your collective bargaining agreement allows you to suspend guys for this for, but whatever it is, do it, because there is no place for dirty play out there. I mean, there's just not. And it doesn't matter. I agree with being a competitive mindset. Not necessarily that if you're not cheating, you're not trying, but always trying to get that edge. I get that, but it's a fine line, and dirty and clean is one that you don't cross.
And I think what the situation is, the league is very, very rice, and they're definitely going to err on the side of caution, and anybody who does something that looks the slightest bit what should be proper character is definitely going to draw a suspension and a fine for it.
Yeah, Burfict has 20, 42, 52, at least 50 so far in his career for unsportsmanlike conduct, at least that I've able to see right there. But in the division there, just interested to see your thoughts on that. And you know what? A suspension, too, play down the road if it was to be for more than 3 or 4 games, because then you would tie into the time when the month. So, yeah, anything in that 3-4 game range, and you could risk him being at play for the first, at first glance, 3 weeks from now, has the potential to be one of the first, I don't want to say playoff preview type games, but one of the divisions start to separate and playoff spots start to be fought for. I would say that's about a safe point in the season when you get into week 9 and you got 2 of the top divisional teams. The Browns theoretically there, Cincinnati. We know that they've got talent obviously on both sides of the ball, although that could double hurt them. You've got A.J. Green down on offense. Here you lose another guy defensively, but it would be of his own thoughts on that play. How about last night, by the way? Did you watch that game, San Francisco and the Rams?
I did. I did see a lot of last night. Yeah, and I have to. He's had some adversity over the past couple of weeks, and people saying about whether or not he's fully committed or is he just cashing a paycheck. And he shut some disbelievers up last night, I think.
I'm not going to lie, I was a bit surprised early on. I watched most of the first half, got away from it for a little bit because I had some production work to do. And then St. Louis, Davis has done a good job there, by the way, at quarterback. But he jumped out early. They had the 14-0. It was 14-3 at one point. And then I believe right after that came the bomb to – was that where the bomb to Brandon Lloyd came in, 80 yards? And then just kind of turned the momentum of the game there. St. Louis had things going for themselves in the first part, but give it to San Francisco for buckling down there and coming back. And as I said at the beginning of the show, kind of to tease what we were going to talk about, I put San Francisco right there with Baltimore. Coincidentally, they got the quarterback / coach brothers. But their demise was prematurely reported. I'm not saying that they're all that, but so many people wrote off San Francisco as they're done. I believe they're going to take a step back from where they were, but that's still a good team over there, man.
Yeah, it is. And even though they have some adversity right now going on with a couple of different things, they still have some talent on both sides of the ball. I wouldn't count them out just yet. I'd be very concerned for them. And, even with Seattle having their issues right now, and Arizona being as good as they are, that nobody expected. And again, I remind you that nobody expected them to be this good. I see that race in that division getting very, very close before it's all over.
Yeah, actually, even you. I mean,